Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Toughness and Body Show. I am really excited today because I have the CEO of the 36 Months project team, Greg Attwells. Thanks for joining us today, Greg.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Now, I had never heard about the 36 Months project until I think it was May 2024. And you won't know this story, but I find that along this journey that I've gone with Liv's legacy, I feel like now she's just guiding me to whatever's next.
Huh.
Right? And I feel like she's like, Dad, you're not doing enough. And she gets on the email or the phone and says, contact my dad about this. And so since the day of her memorial service in 2023, every single week since then, the media has reached out in some way.
Wow.
And what happened in terms of 36 months, I had just finished, oh, actually, no, that was slightly different. I just finished doing the 36 month sorry the 60 minute story, and social media came up about that, and I was talking to them about that. And then it was a really hectic time for me. It was 2.5 days of filming, and I sat down with them for a 2 hour non-stop segment in a dark room with the light on you, and like it was really draining. And I can remember
Mm.
that night I was exhausted. Like I was completely burnt out. Like I don't know what to do. I've never gone through this before. And I had a bath, and I'm in the bath. I thought, oh, I haven't checked my email today, so let me have a look. And in that email was I got confirmation that the Victorian state budget had been approved, and they'd put in essentially $6.5 million of funding for a cause that I had championed, and which is essentially helping eating disorders and funding an in-home eating disorder support program. And it was, wow, I thought that was it for me. Like that was what I was aiming for. I'm like, my work is done.
Mm.
And like live in a typical way, and like the 7 days later, I get a phone call from Nikki,
Yeah.
and she said, would you like to be part of the 36 months project team? So I go
Mm.
through this process of like, is it aligned with Liv's brand? Because as you would appreciate, lots of people reach out once you're in the media and that kind of stuff. And I've had to say no to a few things. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't feel right. And like, as soon as she told me, and I said, yeah, I will do
Mm.
this. And then I think within 2 days, I was up in New South Wales Parliament with you guys.
With us. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, wow.
And then that's the most intense media blitz I've ever gone on in my life. Uh, but that was the tipping point, wasn't it? That got passed through Parliament. I remember sitting
Yeah, it
there on
was.
the Parliament floor, and then we talked about, okay, where to from now, and it was like getting to the Prime Minister. Then Whipper had the opposition leader and the Prime Minister on the show, and they agreed to it. And then November 2024, we're up in Canberra,
Mm.
and it's like, how did we get here? And
Yeah.
I remember we came out of the PM's office, and we're just kind of standing around looking at each other like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
It's like we were like, right, we're in for the fight. Like I'd been rehearsing what it was
Yeah, we all had our speeches prepared, right? And
to
we
say
didn't
to the
use them.
team. Yeah, that's right. And then we came out, and it's like, wow. And I just imagine that that's kind of a little bit like winning a gold medal. Like you work so hard for
Huh.
what it is that you're doing, and then you get it, and it's like, oh, I didn't expect it to feel like this.
Mm.
So that's a really long introduction, but that's how we've come to know each other. And so
Yeah.
obviously your whole mission at 36 months has been to increase the age of social media from 13 to 16. The legislation was approved within what I think it was 2 weeks from that time in November 2024, and
Mm.
it goes live in on the 10th of December 2025, and we are less than 2 weeks away from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our mission more broadly, it's funny, you wouldn't have heard of us before May last year because we didn't exist before May last year.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, it was a bunch of fathers who've all got kids, similar ages, within that sort of 13 to 16-year-old window. Uh, and just feeling like, as parents, we're sort of damned if we do, damned if we don't. You know, our kids ask to be on these apps. We don't really feel comfortable giving them access at such a young age.
Mm.
But at the same time, then they're like, oh, but all my friends are on it. If I'm not on it, I won't get invited to parties. And you don't want them to feel excluded socially or isolated socially. So you're in a bit of a double bind as a parent, and it's really difficult. And until you ask the question, which is what we did, well, what if no one's on it? You know, what if we take away that fear of missing out? And then the next question is, oh, I wonder if we could change the law. And so that's kind of where it all started. I'd say that our mission is a bit broader now. We talk about it as rebuilding the ecosystem around adolescence. So where are the points of failure in the system around teenagers, and what can we do to strengthen them? That's kind of the question that we ask every day. And we went after the age that you became an account holder or a citizen of a social media platform last year, because we just felt that that was a point of failure. 13 was too young. And so, yeah, but there's lots of other interesting things that we can do to help foster and cultivate healthy teen development, which is what we're about.
And obviously, right now, as you and I are speaking, there is a lot of interest in what's going on. We know that the eyes of the world are on us,
Mm,
and I know that both you and I are proud of us as a country, and I
mm,
guess the leadership, not the censorship of our government, to step into this space and say, yeah, we're going to
mm,
stand up against these platforms.
mm,
I know that there's a lot of hate out there as well about
mm,
this. Um, and I think whenever there's any sort of change, people push back against that. But I think if people like I look at it this way, I can hear both sides of the
mm,
story. People say, "Oh, well, if your daughter didn't die, you wouldn't be behind this." Well, I actually would be, because I see how you couldn't. We have this, the most psychologically powerful tool that's ever been invented,
mm,
and we're putting it in the hands of 13, 14, 15-year olds, and even younger than that, that the parents allow them to get on it and just expect that you'll be right.
mm,
And yet we don't say, oh, by the way, 12, 13-year-old, here's the keys to the car, here's the keys to the liquor cabinet. And by the way, on the way out, why don't you stop at the casino or the local pub, go have a few drinks and gamble? Like, we don't do that, and it sounds ridiculous. And by the way, don't wear a seatbelt. It's like, it sounds ridiculous when you say it like that, but that's essentially what we're doing. And I think parents are probably a little bit naive if they say,
mm,
"Well, I'm going to be in charge of what my child looks at."
mm.
You're just dreaming, because you're not sitting beside them 24/7
Yeah.
looking at their screen as they're looking at stuff. And all it takes is, say, they could have the best intentions and it's an erroneous click or something, and they all of a sudden see an image or a video that they're too young to understand,
Mm.
can psychologically destroy the rest of their life.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Whatever that
Yeah.
image is, maybe it's like sexually explicit. Maybe it's like the horrible, harmful things that you see that are real on X and things like that, that's real, that's you're filming that. And somebody sees that and they think, oh my goodness. And then, of course, you've got those other things with it, using AI, and where Liv's challenges were, all the unrealistic body image standards and all that sort of stuff
Mm,
she was being presented with, and then unhealthy eating, and those sorts of things as well. It's like it's such a dangerous tool to just leave kids out there and just expect that they're okay with that.
mm,
They're not equipped. I know what's
mm.
Obviously you're passionate about this, but what's your feeling?
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about safety, right? So, when you and I were growing up as kids, I was rarely at home. I was out and about. I was
Yeah.
exploring the neighborhood with my mates, like
Yeah. I was on my
unsupervised.
bike.
Yeah,
Yep. Like,
independent. I mean, so many things could have gone wrong. Uh, but yeah, I was kind of off, and as a kid, particularly as a teenager, you crave independence. You don't want an adult like looking over your shoulder at what you're doing all the time. You want to feel free with your friends. And so, what we've done, because we've gotten increasingly worried as a society about the safety of our children, um, uh, we've traded all of that sort of real world outdoor independence um, for preferring to sort of know our kids are safe because they're at home upstairs in their bedroom, right?
yeah, yeah,
But they're on their phones or they're on their devices. And we think it's okay, they're safe, they're at home, they're upstairs, I know where they are. And it gives us peace of mind as parents. But as you said, we have no idea what they're watching. We have no idea what other people are saying to them on those apps. Social media makes things easier to say, but it doesn't make them easier to hear. And in many ways, what they could be exposed to upstairs in their bedroom online is far worse than what could happen to them sort of while they're out and about in the neighborhood unsupervised. And so uh, yeah, we find ourselves in this predicament where no matter what happens, kids are going to want independence. They're going to want to not be watched by their parents. Like they don't want an adult hovering over their shoulder, looking at what they're doing. So as we start to as their ability to be independent online is going to be affected with these new reforms, we're going to have to start to get a bit more comfortable about giving them some real world outdoor independence back because
mm.
that's what they need, that's what they want. And yeah, I think there's an opportunity come December 10. It's not really about what they're losing access to or restrictions coming into effect. It's about what are they about to gain access to. This summer is set to be the first summer ever for a lot of these kids without social media. So let's make it the best summer ever. There's going to be more time hanging out with your mates, riding around on bikes, more young love, more young heartbreak, more crappy board games, more Fortnite, more going to the movies, more jumping off rocks into the water, more reading books, more, like more self discovery, more of the stuff that I guess summer is all about, and that's the opportunity. But it also means more independence, and that's the tension for us as parents. Is we've still got to we've got to kind of give them that independence, but it's got to start to be a bit more real world than it has been, I think.
It's always hard to take something away, but this is also part of yeah, growing up.
Mm,
And so they've had access to something that we're now saying, well, we're going to take that away. Not forever, but we're taking it away for now so that you can grow and grab your independence and all that kind of stuff, as you're saying.
mm,
And the fact that things do get taken away from you is just part of life as well. You don't just get to
yeah.
have all these things. Now, is this the right thing to take away? Well, I believe it is for what I said before. But I also think that this is also a moment of change for parents because they do have to step up and probably parent a little bit differently and guide their
Mm,
kids into conversations around change and evolution and why that's okay, and perhaps re-engaging with their kids
mm,
as well. Because I mean, you go out and you see, say, a family of four sitting around, they're all on their phone.
mm,
It's like, put them away, talk,
yeah.
conversation. Rather than take a photo of the meal, why don't you just talk and have that conversation? But obviously, there's there's friction here, and some people are going to find ways to get around it and all that kind of stuff. Just like there's underage drinking, there's underage driving, and all that kind of stuff. What would you say to those parents? And because I'm seeing both sides here, where parents are saying, "Oh my goodness, thank goodness that this is coming into play," and even the kids that are saying, "I'm so glad that I don't have to, be on this to keep up with." the friends or whatever, and you won't be isolated by virtue of missing out and that kind of stuff. But what would you say to the kids and the parents to help them move through this
Mm.
transition and see that it's not just a negative thing?
Yeah, look, let's understand what's really going on, right? Because there's a lot of sort of misinformation swirling around out there. All that's happening is that you cannot become an account holder or a citizen of certain social platforms unless you're over 16. The reason these platforms want you to have an account is because that's when they can use your data or what they know about you to sell to advertisers.
Cool.
So they've got commercial interests in you having an account on their platform. Let's take YouTube, for instance. No one is stopping you from going online and watching YouTube videos. You can watch whatever YouTube video you want beyond December 10. You'll just be in a logged out state. You won't be able to have an account. Now, the interesting thing about YouTube's content moderation filters is that they are in full force when you're using YouTube as a guest or in a logged out state because they assume that you could be anyone, aka a child, and so they are at their highest. So it's kind of the safest way to browse YouTube is browse as a guest. Content moderation filters are in full swing. They won't
Yeah.
say that though because they want you to create an account so that
Yeah.
they can start to learn about you,
Yeah.
and then the algorithm feeds you content that you're interested in, and then they take the data, the information that they know about you, and then sell that to advertisers. So these platforms want you to be citizens of their ecosystem or account holders because they have commercial interests in you doing so. But these laws or these reforms, they're not locking anyone out of the internet. You can still get online, access the content that you want. You're still going to be able to communicate with your friends online. There are plenty of other messaging apps and whatnot out there that you can use to text and message your friends that aren't being included in these restrictions. And so I think a lot of it is just kind of alarm. Like if I was working at big tech at the moment, I would want to confuse and confound the public as much as possible, right? So, I mean, I even heard them, we spoke to someone a few months back and they called this a global contagion risk.
Yes.
Um, so they're using pandemic style language to limit the virus of child safety from spreading around the world. Now, if I worked for one of these platforms, I would want this rollout to be as chaotic, confusing, and complicated as possible. I'd want carnage because I'd want to deter other countries watching from following
Yeah.
Australia's lead. So I just think that a lot of the alarmist language that we hear in the media, I think it's part of their strategy. I think there will be some sabotage by design here. I think they are very capable. They've got the technology, they've the money and the brain power for this to roll out smoothly. I don't think it will though, because I think there will be some sabotage by design because too much is at stake if other jurisdictions are emboldened to kind of follow here. So I would just talk to, if I was, I mean, what I do with my own kids, I would just say, hey, look, not much is really um, changing. You just can't become an account holder or a citizen of certain platforms until you're a bit older. Like citizenship is a rite of passage, like you're not allowed to vote in this country until you're of a certain age. You're not necessarily allowed to participate as a citizen in something uh, until you have a level of maturity to do so. And that's all we're saying here around social media is there needs to be a level of maturity for you to show up positively as a citizen of this ecosystem. And we feel like the right age is probably 16, not 13. That's essentially all that's happened.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And I think it's important not to sugarcoat some of this stuff because we know, and even these big platforms know from their own funded research, that these platforms definitely cause harm.
They do.
They cause a lot of harm to young girls. That's
Mm,
particularly Instagram with the reels and all that kind of stuff. We just had a guest coming in the background there.
yeah, I know.
Um, so yes, I mean that it's real. so I think to pretend that it's all okay, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there, some kids that are using it responsibly and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, we need to protect those that are vulnerable, and that's what these laws are
Yeah.
specifically for. I want to ask you, when you started on this journey with Rob and Whipper, did you expect it to have such enormous change so quickly?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot happened in an initial conversation. So we were sitting in the boardroom here at Finch, which is the company that Rob runs, and all this transpired in the one meeting. So Whipper comes in and he's kind of lamenting the fact that one of his kids is asking for Snapchat, doesn't really feel comfortable giving them access. But all my friends are on it. If I don't have it, I'm not going to get invited to this and that, And
Mm.
then as a parents of, I've got two daughters, Rob's got three daughters. We sort of chimed in and just started expressing how it's a real challenge as a parent, damned if you do, damned if you don't, which is what I shared earlier. And then the next one was, well, what if no one's on it? What if we take away the fear of missing out? And then the next question was, well, I wonder if we could change the law. So as soon as we said that, Whipper gets out his phone and he calls Dom Perrottet, the former New South Wales Premier, and he said, "Hey Dom, we're thinking of starting a campaign to raise the age that kids can access social media from 13 to 16. What do you reckon? Like, is it feasible?" And Dom said, he goes, look, he goes, I reckon it is. He goes, it's something that's keeping parents up at night. You'll get a lot of buy-in from kind of parents across the board. We're about to head into an election. It'll either be later this year or
Yeah,
early next. It's a good time to petition for policy change if you can get it like on the table as like make an election promise. He goes, that's probably the best way to get something like this done. Get one or both parties to commit to it before the election, so then they have to follow through on their promise after. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I reckon you could probably do it before the end of the year.
wow.
And that gave us the confidence, I guess, that we needed to get started. I've done a lot of campaigns in my professional career, sort of in the advertising sort of world, a lot of awareness campaigns, but I'd never really done a policy change campaign before. It's a bit of a
Yeah,
different beast. And so, yeah, Dom's kind of encouragement and advice to sort of say, yep, I reckon you can do it. I reckon you can do it this year, gave us the confidence to just give it a wriggle, like just get going and sort of see if we could. Um, but yeah, I think we knew if we didn't get it on the table, uh, if we didn't get some sort of commitment from either or both parties before the election, I don't think it was going to happen.
yeah,
And that was the feedback that we got from sort of political insiders after the law passed. They said if this took any longer, it probably wouldn't have happened because big tech started lobbying very hard and they started kind of confusing the narrative and making it about digital ID and all this kind of stuff, right? And
getting people off.
it started kind of getting a bit messy, and I think this just needed to be like a sniper shot. It needed to happen quickly and very targeted. If it went on any longer, I don't know if it would have been successful.
It's a real credit to you and the whole team. Like, honestly, I'm proud to have been invited in to be part of it with Liv's story. It's really not me, it's Liv's story, but I guess my energy to keep the story going.
Mm.
I've actually not shared this with anyone, but I never for a moment um, didn't believe that this would happen.
Hmm.
But I think for anyone that's listening, there's a couple of things. If you're looking to achieve some huge change like this, it was the strategy. And I know with other things that I've done here on a state and federal level as well, like we're up to $56.5 million funding now through Live's Legacy.
Wow.
And that would only have happened if I was strategic with politicians and
Mm,
connecting with, like, I've met with so many people at a state level, federal level, all sides of politics, from Labor, Liberal, Independent, no Greens yet, but connecting with people all over the place and finding, what's the strategy that I can use to
mm,
get this across, particularly when you're in the other side of politics. So one of my best contacts has actually been Jason Wood, who's a local here, but he's federal. I'm not sure what his portfolio is at the moment, but I now have his mobile phone number because of the relationship that we've built. And it's not about politics. It was really all just about, so what's a good strategy
mm,
to do this? And he's helped greatly get me in front of the Prime Minister, the Health
mm,
Minister federally, which has then been filtered down to a state level. And then that's ultimately is what's ended up in us being able to get the $6.5 million of funding here locally. Um, it's the 50 million was really by virtue of an independent as well, and that's research money. Two dog therapy programs, which has all just
mm,
been passion and drive to do things. But you need to have a strategy, and you're never going to be able to do any of this on your own.
mm,
And that's why, yeah, I mean, I'm just really, really honored to, we'll not only have this conversation here, but just to always be part of any initiatives that you guys are
mm. Yeah,
initiating in 36 months. And then what the last time we went to, who would have known that we get another call up to go to Parliament House again when they decided they'd add YouTube into it. And then they invited us to the UN as well.
yeah, yeah. The strategy, we haven't spoken too much about it, but you're right, Rob. There was a bit of a blueprint here. It's interesting for anyone interested in the anatomy of change here. I think there were a few things that we did that made this successful beyond just the timing of heading into an election cycle.
Mm.
One of those was we kept it positive.
Yeah.
So you build a movement on hope, not fear.
Mm.
Like being against something isn't as powerful as being for something. And so could have been easy for us to sort of rage against the machine of big tech and get kind of quite fear mongering about what was happening. And there is some sort of dark and destructive stuff happening. But being for things like self esteem, belonging, and resilience, being for healthy teen development, is a more powerful unifier and rallier of
Really well.
people. Um, we built momentum around a petition.
I was going to say,
Uh,
how quickly did you start the petition?
Straight away, we started the
Yeah.
petition was part of the strategy from day one because for two reasons. One, um, it becomes a call to action that enables parents to contribute meaningfully to the cause in an easy way. We thought about doing other things like, write your MP a letter and all this sort of stuff, but it becomes difficult if someone goes, yeah, I care about that, and they want to lend their voice to it. Like if it's too complicated or it's hard to execute or it's going to take too much time, like you're going to lose people. But sign a petition is just an easy step. It takes 30 seconds and they've put their name to something and they become part of it. And the other thing a petition does is it becomes undeniable evidence of public sentiment. So when we started meeting with lawmakers and elected officials, we were able to point to our petition numbers to sort of say, hey, Australian parents want this. And it became quite quickly the largest petition in the world on
Yeah.
this issue. And so that becomes powerful when you're back channeling behind the scenes to get our government to do something. Um, Two other things that I'll say is we asked for one thing, not everything. When we started kind of being in the media lots and having a bit of a profile around what we were doing, we got contacted by lots of other advocacy groups
Yeah.
who wanted us to adopt sort of their issue and bring it in. Because once you start talking about social media, it's very easy to then start talking about screen time and devices and bullying and deep fakes and porn and all this sort of stuff. Like once you start pulling on the thread, it's very easy to get tangled up in all the connected and adjacent issues.
Ultra
But
complex.
but you need, when it comes to policy change in particular, you need to give them one clear, specific ask that just cuts through the noise. They need something clear to debate and vote on. And so we sort of had to park a lot of the other sort of connected issues and just focus on the age that you become an account holder of a social media platform and raising that from 13 to 16. That we just stayed focused on that objective. And I think that helped us kind of succeed. And then the last thing, which is comes back to you, Rob, is
Yeah.
you've got to give for us just real families a voice. Like experts and their research played a role, but it was the parents like yourself who bravely advocated for change in the face of their own grief and loss that had far and away the biggest impact. And so I would say that out of all the things we did, uh, it was voices like yours, Rob, and Liv's story, and other parents like Matt and Kelly O'Brien, and daughter Charlotte's story, and Emma Mason, and Tilly, and it far and away it was the real mums and dads with real stories that really made this happen, to be honest. And so,
Yeah.
like genuinely, I don't say this lightly, but I don't think it would. I don't think this would have happened without you leaning in the way that you did, and courageously sharing Liv's story as you continue to do. And so I want you to know the pivotal role that you and Liv played in systemic change in our country.
Yeah. Thank you. That's meaningful. Thank you.
Mm,
I know when we were the first visit to Parliament House, we met with the PM first. Like sharing a bit of Liv's story, and he was tearing up, and Peter Dutton was the same.
mm,
And like you can put politics aside. I mean, these are just human beings. They have hearts, and I think they both got that. Yeah, this needs to change. And so I see how the lived experiences make a massive difference to the politicians
mm.
to cut through or forget the research and everything. This is what's really happening. And so I'm glad that our leaders in both, in power and opposition both agreed with this, which is why I was able to get through so
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think it's a tremendous strategy that you had. I was going to ask you, the part about getting us involved, but you nailed that one. I think from the way that I looked at it, from my perspective, like Liv passed away April 2023, and I mean I don't think words exist how you can explain
Mm,
that process that you go through. But I know who I am and the change that Liv wanted to be able to achieve to help others because she was just, so loving. And it started with dog therapy for me.
mm,
And I started to GoFundMe page within 2 days after she passed. And I set a goal of $10,000 for dog therapy, to provide dog therapy dogs because that was the only type of therapy that worked for Liv. And
mm,
I wanted that money to go to Monash Children's Hospital to start the therapy program there. I met with the head pediatric doctor and head child psychologist. It was about 3 or 4 days after Liv passed. And I was obviously emotional and had to go back to the hospital for that meeting. And that was hard. But from that meeting, I didn't give them a cent. And because from my meeting and planning the idea, they now have a self-funded full-time dog therapy program in the Eden
wow.
ward. And so I used that money to then start a new one at Alfred Health as part of a clinical. assessment that they do of the kids and stuff. So I was passionate about the one thing, like you said before, eating disorders and making change there, and it was dog therapy. And then, I did that. And then the media started because a politician named Liv in federal parliament. And then the media started. And I thought, okay, now I'm starting to get contacted by a whole bunch of people. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I thought, all right, if I can keep the conversation positively going, like you said,
Mm,
or in this space, then we can get more funding. If we keep the conversation going, there's more funding, we get better solutions, we get less kids suffering. Like it's an eating disorder is so complex. But like you
mm,
said, I was focused on eating disorders and not, okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about this?
yeah.
And so I thought I'm just going to focus on this. And my choice was to focus on, for instance, I could have focused on the ward where Liv was and having some change there, but I thought I want bigger than that. I want to change the whole freaking system because I believe the whole treatment system is poor. So how do I change all of that? Right. And so then one conversation led to another. It opened doors because, say I was having a conversation with you and something came up and said, oh, actually, I'm good friends with, such and such, who's the CEO of, Monash Children's or whatever. I said, oh, would you be able to introduce me? So now all of a sudden we've avoided every gatekeeper and it's bang, oh, well, Greg's referred Rob to me. So, well, let's have a conversation. And it
Mm,
just opened up a whole bunch of doors and I just kept going forward. The odd thing came by that was like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, that's outside the scope. I'm not bringing that in, and it doesn't feel like it's a good fit. Hence why then when it came to the social media, well, that came about, I think, because of the story I did with 60 Minutes, and this is
mm,
where part of my strategy was about using the media to help keep the conversation going.
going, yeah.
I met with all the politicians from a strategy perspective. All right, how do I help funding here? How do I get this fund? I had a meeting with Alfred Health, and I didn't know why I was there. I was just going with what Liv's saying, Dad, go here. And so I'm sitting there and I said, so I like to ask the question, what keeps you awake at night? Because that's your nervous system and your biggest challenges, right? And I said, well, yeah, we just put up a grant as part of the $50 million of research that Liv was responsible for getting for them, and they failed in getting allocated funds. And I said, what was it for? And they explained it was like an in-home eating disorder program and stuff. And I started to tear up a bit. I said, yeah, that makes me really emotional because that would probably have saved Liv, like
Mm,
something like that. And I said, I don't know how. I said, how much did you need? And they said 2.8 million. I said, I don't know how, but I'm going to get that funded for you.
wow.
And I'm sure they were like, yeah, right. Because in 15 years, they've never had a grant or something like that successfully funded. And it's like, okay. So from that meeting, I then went on my journey to meet with people to work out the strategy. And then in under 12 months, we got 6.5 funded, not just their hospital, but also the Austin Hospital as well.
Wow.
So two programs. And that was just through strategy. And I just knew, I said, I'll get the funding for you. And so then when the social media stuff came up, it just made sense to me that, yeah, well, that was a part of
Yeah.
Liv's demise as well. And these rules also would have greatly supported her still being here because
Yeah.
she wouldn't have been able to go on that deep dive. I know there's
Mm,
people that say, well, why didn't you just stop her using her phone? Well, she was in hospital for most of the time and she couldn't have a phone, right? But she's not allowed to have phones in there. But you also don't know what they're looking at because
no.
you look at it 24/7.
No, yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
it's been one beautiful journey for sure. And I know that Liv has played a huge part
Mm,
here, along with other lived experiences as well. But yeah, I just really want to thank you, Rob Whipper, the whole team for yeah, the idea and for also reaching out to me. I'm just so grateful that you did. I did want to ask you just a couple of closing questions.
yeah.
Yeah, before we hit record, we were talking about I can't remember whether it was before record or not now, but we're talking about this ecosystem of safety for kids and what's next and so forth. Actually, before as we get into that, I guess because other countries are watching us, I mean, at the time of recording this, just in the last week or so, we're seeing reports that Denmark is jumping on board as well. Although I did see it slightly softened yesterday, and they're going with 15, I think, rather than 16. But I think it's only a matter of time before other countries. I've done a number of interviews with China and Japan outlets. There's a big appetite for change in Asia. So what's next for 36 months in the social media space first? Obviously went to the UN, try and have an impact there on other countries. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so um, the world is watching Australia at the moment, and there are a lot of sort of sovereign states who want to do something similar, but they are just want to observe what happens over December, January, and how this rolls out because they want to learn. They don't want to make if they can avoid making mistakes, if they can sort of do it a little better second time round,
Oh,
they
not for
will.
us. Mm.
100%, dominoes will start to fall around the world, and other countries will follow suit. Because it's a no brainer, really.
Yeah.
We whenever a new product enters the market, it's unregulated initially because nothing like it has existed before,
Mm.
and then in order for it to be safer, we start to regulate it, and the companies responsible for making the products start to innovate in response to those regulations, and the product changes. So when cars first came into the market, they didn't have
No
windscreens,
seat belts.
they didn't have seat belts, they didn't have roofs, and then regulation comes in, and we go, oh, these need to be safer, and the car companies adjust and change the products, and the whole thing kind of gets better. And that's kind of what's happening as it relates to social media. Like it's come in like a incredible force that it is, completely changed our world and the way that we relate to each other, but in
Mm.
a way that is very unregulated. And governments now are going, all right, I think we need to step in and just bring some regulation here, particularly as it relates to the safety of children. Um, and what will happen is the social media platforms will respond. They will make their products safer for kids. Uh,
Mm.
we're not. I'm not saying Instagram's bad. I'm not saying like these are companies who are making products, and they're being forced to comply with new laws, and they will. But in order to stay profitable and relevant, they will innovate and adapt and adjust, and their products will become safer. That's normal. That happens over and over again in every industry. So our job is to keep holding feet to the flames.
Yeah.
Our job is to say, like, if December comes and goes and it's wobbly and it's not good enough, then it's not good enough. You know what I mean? Like, we will make sure that we use our voice and our platform to for Australian parents to get what they asked for. And so there is still an advocacy role to play here at home. We have been mentoring and advising other groups like us in other countries, like grassroots parent-driven groups who want to petition for similar changes. There's a group in New Zealand, for instance, called Before 16 that we're close with, that we've kind of been advising and mentoring. Who are looking to mobilise and petition for similar changes there, as well as some places in Europe. So that's what's next for us as it relates to social media. Still very much kind of active in that space.
Do you think it's going to take, I don't know, maybe there's three countries like the UK, Canada, France, maybe, I don't know, whether a collective, let's say the three of those jump on board, obviously that's going to put way more pressure on the big platforms. Um, I don't know. Do you have a sense of like what it's going to take
Yeah. When
for, say,
when
the US to then say institute the change themselves?
Yeah, I don't think the US is going to do anything at the moment, not with the current president. I think I think what will happen sooner than we expect is I think the EU will institute EU-wide policy on this issue. Because when we went to the UN and had our event there with the PM's office, um, Ursula, the president of the EU Commission, spoke at the event, and she sort of signaled that they're looking at this at the moment, like EU-wide policy. And so that's why, when Denmark comes out and says, "Oh, we're doing this for under 15s," what will happen once it goes like across the EU is that all of those individual countries will adopt sort of the EU policy, if that makes sense. And so I think that will happen quite quickly, to be honest.
Okay.
And then when you've got Europe, or sorry, the European Union, like that's incredibly significant. And then I think the floodgates open, and then a lot of countries are very emboldened to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Greg, I mean, we could keep talking about this for the whole day, I am sure. If people want to get involved with 36 months, I think it's up to over 150,000 signatures now. Would you like to give the website a plug so that people can stay in touch?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just 36months.com if you want to learn more about it, or you can sort of follow us on socials. Just at the handle is 36 months official.
Yeah, sweet. Now, as well, I want to really thank you for, I'm going to give you the closing word in a second, but I really want to thank you for your time here today, the beautiful work that you've done. You and the team have been like pivotal in changing the world.
Mm,
Um, because now that Australia's making it law, it will no doubt have that flow-on effect, as we've been talking about, to change the rest of the world.
mm,
And I think, I mean, we were talking about this up in Canberra. I was talking to Whipper about it and how you don't often recognize the most significant things in life or the significant achievements you've achieved in life in the time that they're happening. But
mm,
you reflect on it, yeah, maybe it's years later and you think, wow, remember that? That was huge. But like we just focus on, okay, well, what's next? Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. So my final question to you after thanking you is, what would you say is the greatest advice you've ever received?
mm. I got this from my dad, actually. We weren't close, so yeah, I had a bit of an absent father, and I didn't have too much to do with him as a kid. But I remember him and my mum split up when I was 12, and he moved to the country and lived on a farm. And I remember I went and saw him once, spent a bit of time with him. I was maybe late teens, early 20s, and I was asking for his advice about investing. Like I was like, oh, property, stocks. Like,
Mm.
what do I do? Like, how should I? Where should I invest? And he sort of looked at me, and he said, invest in yourself. He said, back yourself. Uh, and he sort of went on to say, like if you've got an idea, if you've got something you want to do, like back yourself. And it was a really unexpected answer. And I never forgot those two words, back yourself. I whispered them to myself often. I
Yeah.
didn't get much from my dad, but I got those two words, and I lean on them a lot. And they came up a lot last year in the campaign. When you're up against the wall or you're on the ropes and you're not sure if there's a way forward. Uh, it's just an interesting couple of words to say to yourself. Come on, Greg, back yourself. To
Great
just kind
advice.
of hang in there and keep going.
Well said. Beautifully said, Dad. All right. Thank you so much for today, Greg. It's been an honor having you on the show.
Thanks, Rob.